Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Come Mod With Me. In today's episode we are going to talk about adding special properties to our item, our redstone sword. We're also going to create a new class type for our sword. So we're no longer going to be using the item sword that you see here. We're going to create our own file. And in that file we're going to add some special properties to this redstone sword. Now, I do have a question for you all before we begin. If you would like to see more tutorials than just one a week, I was thinking about doing maybe 2 tutorials a week so that we can start getting into the more advanced stuff. So I'm not, this kind of feels a bit slow for me because I want to be in showing you a lot more advanced tutorials, like starting to get into Forge, which would be cool, starting to talk about world generation and things like that, and different properties for blocks. So if you think this is going too slow and you would like to see 2 episodes a week, like maybe on a Wednesday and a Saturday or something like that, just hit the like button. And if I reach 50 likes, I'll know that, okay, you guys want to see 2 episodes a week. Okay, and I'm not going to do it unless you guys want me to. So just hit the like button. If I get 50 likes on this video, then I'll do 2 a week for you guys, and hopefully we'll get up there and get talking about more advanced tutorials. What we're going to do first, before we can add any properties to the sword, is we're going to create a new class type, a new sword type, if you will. Instead of using item sword to create sword red, or our redstone sword, we are going to use a new class file so that we could change what's inside of it, and that way set mobs on fire and stuff like that. So let's go up here, create a new file, and call it item tutorial sword. Now, an important thing about making Java files, or class files, sorry, you want to make sure that you're not creating a new class file for every type of sword you create. It doesn't make sense to do that. You're wasting space. The best thing is to use this file and to use if statements or to use switch statements to decide which item you're talking about, rather than actually choosing a new file for each sword. So have one file for all your new swords. That's all you're going to need. Let me go over to here to item sword. So find item sword, click it open, hit Control A, Control C, and then Control V to paste it here. Get rid of that. Now you're gonna have to change a few things. You just hover over top of item sword and then click on rename type, and all the errors are gone. Alright, let's go through what comprises this sword type. First of all, you have ItemTutorialSword. Obviously it extends item so that the game knows it's an item. We have weapon damage, which talks about how much damage it deals to an entity. We have an enum material type. We'll get into this a little bit later. This holds all the information to what type of materials you can use. When we create a new block, we might get more detail about this, but this is what tells you how many times it can kill an enemy, how many times it can harvest a block, how strong it is versus a block versus an entity, how enchantable it is, etc. But currently we'll just use the normal enum tool material. We won't go into that this time. Next we have here the initiator. You can create more than one of these initiators. Okay, you can have multiple ones and have different intakes, different parameters, here, and change things up in here, which is actually quite cool. So let's just copy and paste this, and let's change this so that you have to also add another integer, int par3, and what that's going to be is tell us how much extra damage we want to add to the entity. So instead of having it go with the normal tool material, like stone has a certain amount of damage it causes, we're just going to put par3 here so we can change how much damage we want. Now notice there's 2. I can even add a third one, because this one, if I use this to define my item, to define my tutorial sword, it will use the ie.material to get the damage plus 4. But if I use this one, I can actually tell it how much damage I want it to give. So I can use stone material, but have it damage as bad as iron. You know what I'm saying? Or I can also change this tool material to get max uses, to change it to par 4, like this. Oops, I'll space that out. Int par 4. And then I could change this to par 4. So that way I can say, you know what? I want the max amount of usage to be 1,000, but I still want it to be like rock, like stone. But I also want the attack to be higher or lower than stone. You see what I mean? And you can create a new one of these as well and just change the parameters. You can't have two identical. There's no reason for it. You shouldn't have two identical, and it also messes up the code. Let's put that back to there and leave this the same. Okay, so we have here the tool material, max stack size. You can change this to 10 to 20 to 64, whatever you want. Yeah, so you can have 64, and all that means is that in a stackable pack, instead of just being 1, it could be 12. The cool thing about doing that with an item like a sword or a pickaxe is that you can actually have 12 pickaxes, so when one breaks, you automatically start using the other one. You don't have to look for your other pickaxe or switch to it. It's automatically there if you change the sizes. So if you have 2 pickaxes. I have a mod called Better Minecraft mod, and I have daggers, and daggers can be stacked into 2s. So when one breaks, another one's usable because they are weaker than swords. So it kind of makes up for its weakness by being able to be stacked by 2. Okay, let's see. Moving on. We talked about that. Strength versus a block. Let's say you want your redstone sword to be able to harvest redstone. You can say, just change this to block redstone, and then this just tells it how strong and how long it'll take to break the block. So it's strong versus that. Currently, this is a sword, and swords are good against webs. I guess I don't know why, but they are good against webs. This is where we're going to be spending most of our time. Hit entity. So we'll come back to that one. And then you have on block destroyed. So when you do destroy a block with this, it calls this this right here. And what it does is it damages the item 2 instead of 1. So if you're thinking about uses, if you have 500 uses for your item, if you destroy blocks with your item, and that includes web with this, it's going to make 2 uses for every block you destroy. So you'll only be able to destroy 250 blocks instead of 500 creatures. See what I mean? So yeah, you can take this out if you want, and then you can damage as many blocks as you want. It still does 1 damage. Or you can change this to make sure that they don't damage anything and say 20 uses if you try to destroy a block. This is get damage versus entity. Don't worry about that. It's just telling it how much damage caused. Is full 3D true? Don't worry about that. Don't worry about the actions. Max item duration. Don't worry about that. On right click, what this is telling it to do is to block. So when you right click it, it blocks. This is a boolean. It says can harvest block. You can change this to anything you want. You can change this to redstone, to dirt, whatever you want, and it can actually harvest that block then. Instead of it just breaking, it can harvest it. And last but not least, this is item enchantability. So it gets the enchantability tool. One note on enchantability: if you create an ItemTutorialSword, it's not going to naturally be enchantable. You have to change you have to add it to the enchantment table because it is a different item. Alright, so let's come down to here, hit entity. Okay, this is where we're going to spend some time. What we want to do is add a property to it. So when it hits an entity, if you are holding a certain sword, then that sword will cause fire damage. Currently we only have 1 sword, so to do this we need an if statement. Curly brackets. Now what an if statement does is it says if the statement in here is true, so whatever it is, then it will run this code and then pop out. So let's say if this item here, this is the item that you're using to attack the entity. If this item dot item ID is equal to, now you need to use two equal signs here whenever you're comparing two objects in coding. If you know Java, okay, you know. But if you don't know Java, you need to have two, okay, when comparing two objects. You could do equals to or greater than, equals to or less than. So if it equals this or is less than this, you could do less than, you could do greater than, you could do not equal to. But we're currently going to do equals to. And let's go to our item. Now to get our item from here, where it's been declared, to here, we need to declare the class. So mod underscore tutorial period sword red dot shifted index. Now you may be wondering, what is shifted index? It's the same thing as item ID. I don't know why they're different. It would have been easier if they just named them the same thing, but I guess there's different properties to each. Don't worry about it. Shifted index is basically the same as item ID. So if this item that you're using to attack is the same as sword red, in other words, you're using your redstone sword, then what we're going to do is we're going to par to entity living. You can copy and paste this right here if you want. Entity living dot set fire. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the mob on fire when we hit it. Oops, semicolon. Okay. Now we're getting an error because we didn't put anything in the parameters. I don't remember about Control A, Control I. Okay. What goes on these parameters is how many ticks you want the entity to be on fire for. So if you did 1, the entity would snap on fire and snap out of fire. So you light it on fire and instantly it would be no longer on fire. I don't know if it would damage it. You need a little bit longer than that. Lava does 30 ticks of damage. Let's do less than lava. Let's do 20 ticks of damage. So when we hit an entity, if we're using the sword red, it'll set it on fire for 20 ticks. Now the only creatures this doesn't work for are creatures that are immune to fire, like zombie pigmen. It won't hurt them. Now if this item isn't, in fact, our redstone sword, it's going to skip out of this and come down to here, cause damage, and then return true. In other words, kick out of this statement here. Okay. Let's try it out. So let's save, go into mod tutorial. Now when we declared this item, we declared it as a new item sword. We need to change that to tutorial sword because we want to use this class file. And we can actually change this. Let's make the damage 20, which will kill just about anything. Did we declare that? Par 1, enum tool. Oh, that's right. It's par 3, par 4. Okay, get rid of par 4. Sorry about that. We're not going to be changing the max uses. Okay, so that should be fine now. Yeah. So it's going to do 20 damage plus 4, so 24 damage, which is pretty good. It'll kill most everything in one hit. And you could change this to 1, so it's only 5 damage, which takes a lot of hits to kill. That's the cool thing about creating your own class files. You can play around with them as much as you want. Okay, so Minecraft is up and running. Let's go into our test world. And we should have our sword. Yep, there it is. It is enchanted still. And that's, yeah, it shouldn't be enchantable, but that's because we already had an enchantment on it when we first made it. So let's kill this thing and set it on fire at the same time. Yeah. Like I said before, this is well overpowered with 20 as 24 as its attack damage. So it's one hit kill for most everything. And it does set mobs on fire. I just need to find a mob that's strong enough to withstand 20. I probably shouldn't have done it as 20. Dumb me. Well, we'll test it out again later. But as you can see, we now can set mobs on fire with this sword. But let's say we wanted to create a sword that does knockback without actually having it to be enchanted with knockback. So to do that, we're going to create a new item. And to make a new item, let's just copy and paste this. Let's create a new item called axe red. All right, let's make a redstone axe. I know it hasn't been made yet. So let's copy this as well here in the static. And this is all you really do to create a new item, is just add it in. Nothing special besides changing this number here. If you don't change this number, you're going to get some pretty weird, funky stuff happening, because you'll end up, sword red will actually be a red axe. Yeah, so it'll be pretty funky. So you want to change that to 1 up, 5001. Let's change the damage to these to less than that. Let's make them 5 damage. Okay, so they're going to do 5 damage. 5 plus 4 is 9 damage. So we have sword red, axe red. Now we're going to change this to tutorial axe. Okay. Now that hasn't been created yet because we didn't make it up here. We need to create a new class file called tutorial axe. Item tutorial axe. But before we do it, need to change this as well. There we go. Modding Minecraft is a lot of copying and pasting. So here we go again. We're going to copy and paste. And change this to X. And change this to X. And we haven't made an image for this yet. I might go off camera and make one quick. Just copy an X sort of thing. But for now, let's just do 60. Icon index 60. And change this to X. There we go. We want to create a recipe for it. And change this to X. We've already gone over how to do this before, so basically copy and paste is the best way. Okay, now to create an axe is slightly different, if you remember. It's usually stick, and I believe R, and R. Oops. R. Put a space there. No, I won't put a space there either, so that'll be fine. Okay, so there we go. So you have 2 on the top, 1 redstone on the side, a stick, and yep, okay, that's all good. Alright, now what we need to do is create a new class file, again, and call this one item tutorial axe.java. Remember the .java, otherwise you do not create a Java file, you create a text file. Okay, and text files don't get recognized by Java. Alright, there it is. Now let's find item X. Control A to copy, Control A, Control C to copy, Control V to paste, and X out of the axe. Now there's a different thing with the axes. The axes don't usually do damage versus an entity, unlike axe item tutorial axe. Yep, this one's got to change as well. There we go. Now it's no. Now there's no things here. Now, if you want to make this to be something that actually does more than just chop wood, because right now all it's doing is saying its strength versus block is wood, return efficiency on proper material, and then it tells you exactly what it's effective against. You can add things to this as well, to say effective against redstone, if you wanted to, whatever you wanted to, make it effective against a certain block. But we need to change this up a little bit. We're going to take some things from TutorialSword and add them to Tutorial Axe. Okay, and to do that, we're going to copy this bit right here and add it to here. Reason being, we want to create a battle axe sort of thing. All right, let's copy this then. There we go. Tutorial Axe. Alright, so basically what I did is I just made the super the same as this, so it is still used as a tool. We don't need this. We will take max stack size, might as well. Set damage. We do want to do damage because we're going to add, copy and paste this right here, to this. Okay, so we want this axe to do damage. We want this item tutorial axe to have the ability to make damage. If you use this constructor here, it'll be like a normal axe. So you can create a, I don't know, a sandstone axe with this. But if you use this one, it's actually going to be an axe, but also it'll cause damage. But you have to add a few other things as well. So over here, obviously one thing you need to do is add public boolean hit entity. So copy that and add it into here. Just after static, I'll put static at the bottom. Get that out of the way. Okay. So what this does is it says hit entity. Now we don't want to set the mob on fire anymore. We want to do something else if it is a sword red. Now what this is going to do is it's going to actually allow all of the type of axes to do a damage. So instead of doing that, we're going to take this and whoops, I'm going to take this and move it into here and return true. And what we're going to do over here is, oops, we're going to paste this again, except what we're going to do is put an if this is using tutorial axe red, then it's only going to use one of our uses. If it's not, it's going to use two. You know, basically using an axe against a normal axe against a zombie is going to do two uses instead of one use. So you're less likely to use the axe against a zombie. Okay, the other thing we're going to need is in TutorialSword. We're going to need to get damage versus entity and place that here. One other good thing to do as coding, I haven't done it so much because I'm showing you, but good coding practice is to add lots of these, lots of comments. It lets other coders know what you're doing. It also reminds you what that code does in case you forgot. So don't forget to do that. Like this, we could put here double backslash when you hit a bad guy, it does stuff. Okay, so yeah, when you hit a bad guy, it does stuff. So yeah, the reason why we need get damage versus entity weapon damage is so that we know how much damage we're actually doing to the entity. Otherwise, it'll be like any other axe. So we'll make weapon damage equal to 0, so that if this doesn't change it, it'll be 0. Anyway, so it won't return any extra damage unless it's an axe red. Okay, so we've got that. Another thing you might want to include, you don't have to, but you see this right here, enum action get item use enum block. What this is talking about is when you right click with a sword in your hand, you actually block. So if you want your axe to block like most weapons do, just copy and paste this in the item tutorial axe. I'm not going to do it. I think this axe is going to be pretty boss, so I'm not going to do it. Now currently we have here damage the item one time if it's this, 2 times if it's not a red X. But I want to add in knockback. Now this is pretty cool. It's a bit of code, and I will put all of this code that I have here on the paste bin. It's a, where'd it go? Here we go. It's this bit of code right here. Okay, let's copy and paste that. Okay. Now all this does here, random equals new random. Do I have a random in here somewhere? I have not declared a random. Stinking, I have to include it. Yeah, let's just make it a standard number. Let's just make it easy, just to start off with. I'll talk about randoms later. So let's get rid of the random section. If you know how to include randoms, you can do it. I did include an if statement. So you only knock back if it's greater than 5, greater than or equal to 5 out of 10. And delete this. Also, a cool trick with Eclipse is if you hit Control A and then Control I, it automatically changes everything where it should be. So let's do int j equals 4 divided by 3. Now in this code you have here part 2 entity living add velocity. So it's telling you the entity you're hitting, you want to add velocity to them. Now there's a lot of code here, so if you can understand this, that's awesome. If you can't, don't worry about it. Okay, all this is telling them is that the rotation in the yaw, the rotation in the yaw, it's basically telling you what direction it should fly back in. I tried to do this by myself without any help the first time, and every time I hit an entity, he always flew in the, you know how when you turn different directions, there's 1, 0, there's 0, 1, 2, and 3. Well, he'd always fly in 0 direction. Even if I was standing facing the 3 direction, the opposite of 0, it would fly into me and over me. It was really crazy. Yeah, so this number here, the 4, or j, is basically how far, how high they're going to fly when you hit them. 4 is a decent number. You could do 20. Actually, we'll do 20 because that's pretty funny. Okay, and all this is telling it is that this is how far it's going to fly and how high. And the thing about 20 is they fly so high and far that they actually die when they drop. But anyway, that's why I like the random number generator, because I could actually generate a random number between 0 and 10. If it's 5 and over, it'll pop into here and it'll knock them back between 5 and 10 back. So, and 5 and 10 high. So it wouldn't always be the same knockback, it'd be different. Anyway, if you want to create knockback, just do this. I divide it by 3 because otherwise they'll fly massively far. So it's a third of 20 versus actual 20. And you could play around with this all you want to get your kind of preferred flight speed and flight depth, but we're just going to leave it at that for now. We're going to add one more effect to this, and that is, you know when you enchant an item and it has that glow to it, or golden apples have that special glow? That's something called has effect. So I'm just going to copy and paste this code, which you can do as well. I am going to change a few things in it because it is actually in reference to another thing that I created. So let's get rid of that. And let's say, oh, I didn't copy the full thing. Okay, well, else return false. Ooh. Where there you are. And what that's basically saying is does it have an effect? If it does, it's going to give it the shimmery glow. So mod tutorial dot ax, whoa, not class, dot ax red, shift and so if it's an ax red, it's going to get the shimmery glow regardless. So you don't have to enchant it to get that glow. It's always going to have it. If it isn't, it's going to be false. Remember, we're making these files so that we can have more than one item created using this file. Okay, oop, there's an error. Why is that an error? Oh, that's because we haven't created it yet. Haha, that's right. We have to save this first. Now the error's gone. Alright, so we've done that. Everything is fine. Let's play it up and see how we do. There's another thing to realize when creating recipes is for most recipes, let's place this down. Do we have redstone? We do. For most recipes, if I were to do this, I'm not getting an X. But if I were to do that, I'm still not getting an X. Why isn't it giving me an X? I must have messed up the... Oh. I messed up the crafting recipe. Alright. Let's go back. Right, so I messed up the crafting recipe on that. Let's see. Space, 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 space. There we go. I think the note on these is you want to make sure you have them in the right order. You have everything pointing to the right direction. Create a new red X. Okay, that should be good. Let's try that again. Log back on here. Let's come here. Okay. Yes, it did. Oh, and a redstone X looks like a sheet of paper. Okay, so let's see if it works. Now remember, we did 20. 20 divided by 3, and I want to show you how far this guy will fly. Okay, he's bouncing off the trees. Watch this. Oh, stop lagging. Hold on, come here, mister. See how far he flew? So you can also change it so the height goes higher. I obviously didn't want the height to go too high. I did do it once where the J, I'll show you in a minute, actually counted for height as well as distance. So he would travel 20 distance and 20 height. So anyway, so that's working fine. Yeah. Let's just actually I want to talk a little bit more about this right here. So you could change this to whatever you want, but just remember the distance that animal flew was quite far, and that was 20 divided by 3. Okay, which is quite far. I mean, you could do 10. You don't want to do really much less than 5. They don't fly too far. And if you wanted to make it so that they flew high, okay, let's see, entity yar, yaw, float j, f5.1 DDG math helper. Okay, so this here. Oh, whoa, whoa, stop doing that. I hate it when it does that. This section from this over is all about, I believe, yeah, is all about how far it's flying, and this is all about how far it's flying as well. The difference is this right here. Ooh, stop that. I hate it when it does that. Alright, where is it? This right here. This is telling you how high it is going to fly. Okay, so that tells you how many blocks high. So right now it's 0.1 blocks high. You could change it to 0.5 blocks high. Actually, ooh, what? Oh, come on, stop being stupid. Let's change it to 0.4 blocks high. So it's going to be 4 times higher than it was. It's 10, so it's not going to fly quite as far. Let's load it real quick. Yeah, you'll see. So anyway, let's take this Battle X. Where are we? Come here, Mr. Moo. Let's see how well this works now. So, excuse me. See how high he flew up? And the fall actually killed him. Yeah, so he flew actually pretty high if you noticed how high he flew. The damage of him flying up actually ended up killing him rather than just the damage of me hitting him with this red axe. I can't show you how effective it is against wood because obviously I'm in creative mode, so that doesn't work, but yeah, see? Yeah, decent height. Decent height. So if you wanted to change the height, I'll show you one more time. It is this number right here. Now the file I'm going to give you is only going to have a 1 there, so it's not going to be flying very high. But you can change that. But you notice I just changed it to 0.4 and it flew quite high. Alright, you can also edit these numbers in here. Okay, to have variation of height, whatever. But play around, see what it's like. Have a play with all this stuff. And let me know how you're getting on. Write a comment saying, hey, wow, I tried this, it was pretty cool, or hey, I tried this and I made the cow fly 600 feet in the air or something. You can do that. It's pretty crazy, but yeah, it's cool at the same time. Oops. Yeah, 0.1. Yeah, so anyway, I hope this was informative and helped you out with your mods, and look forward to next week. We're going to be continuing this. Also, I was debating on whether or not I should start with 1.3.1 modding today, but as of yet, ModLoader has not updated completely. I've tested it out. There are a lot of serious issues with ModLoader right now, so until it comes out in its final release of 1.3, we're not going to be covering it, because to be honest, you don't want to start messing with it until it's finished, because you'll have to change your mod again. So we'll stick to 1.2.5 until 1.3 is in its full release. Anyway, XaedBlade signing off. Hope you've enjoyed it. Remember to hit the like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really helps me out. Also, if you like this video and there's 50 likes, I will start doing 2 episodes a week. So we'll be covering a lot more material a week than just one. Anyway, XaedBlade signing off. I'll see you later.